Hello and welcome to Autocar Professional. I am joined by Naveen Dachuri, who's the co-founder at CTO at Yulu Bikes. And I see Yulu everywhere. You go to any big city, small city, you see Yulu and the kind of impact it's making and how last mile mobility segment in the two-wheeler space has sort of been disrupted by you. So let's start with that story. Let's start with tell our viewers how has that how has this success story been to this level and how did it grow on to become like a massive force to reckon with when it comes to the last mile mobility segment, because this was a really surprise because you've electrified the segment, so to say. So if you could start by that.
Sure. First of all, thanks for inviting Yulu, and I'm just a representative of Yulu here. Um, to so so we, Again, like I'll go back to where we all started. We wanted to solve the mobility problem, people mobility in urban cities. It's always been a problem. Short mile, last mile connectivity problem.
That was the clear focus area.
That was a clear focus area. But post-COVID, we saw there is a big potential for the last mile delivery. Again, because of the tailwinds that were there towards quick commerce and e-commerce business and things like that. Because of which we were able to deploy more vehicles and we are able to see a hockey stick growth.
Yeah.
That's
for everyone to see.
That's everyone to see.
Yeah.
Again, for people, it has ordering using a quick commerce platforms has become a habit for folks now, which is actually helping businesses like us to put more and more fleets, and that is more towards the eco-friendly fleet that we are talking.
Yeah, I've seen in foreign countries like bikes like Yulu are sort of used for, I mean, personal transportation as well in terms of, whereas in India it has taken a very different story when it comes to electrifying the last mile mobility segment and delivery and all of that. So how did that come about? Because you've sort of found a very unique Indian solution to an Indian problem, because we clearly don't, I mean, whatever works in the West does not necessarily translate to the Indian market.
So it is also the way everyone was groomed up. Like if you think about Western, it is more of a kick scooter, more like in a standing position,
exactly.
right? So if you look like when a child is growing there, everyone will be used to riding those kind of kick scooters.
So it's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing. Whereas in India, if you look, everyone wants to ride a tricycle, means riding in a sitting position.
Yeah.
And that is where like people feel more comfortable riding our vehicles than a kick scooter. And our infrastructure is also built for riding or using vehicles in a seated position. So that is why we picked this form factor versus going after what Western was doing, where everyone was using a kick scooter.
Yeah.
And this form factor also helped us to venture into other areas like solving last mile delivery things and solutions.
Okay, so how much penetration would you say Yulu has in the delivery segment, last mile mobility? I know it's like it's difficult to arrive at a number, but
at least the cities where we are operational, we are close to 35 to 40%. We have the presence
in the delivery segment.
In the delivery segment. And then talking about like certain segments within the city, if you see, we have a penetration even more than 60-70%.
Okay. What are the other use cases that could develop in the future going forward?
So people mobility, as I told, like with the development of infrastructure, more cities, metro cities coming up, the last mile mobility problem is still going to be there because we don't have parking spots at any of these metro stations or public transportation.
Yeah.
And once people get out of that place, they have to reach their destination, right? So form factors like where it is more of a pooled kind of scenario or independent vehicles like us, shared vehicles will be the area where there will be a big boost.
Okay.
And of course, the quick commerce is keep going to grow up, and that will add to.
And India is sort of at the forefront of all these innovations.
Yeah, innovations. It's always been there.
Can you talk a bit about the policy? Again, when we see global markets, we have seen a lot of subsidy support in all of these markets, and that's when the initial phase of growth has happened. And now they're sort of, some markets are seeing a slowdown, some markets are seeing like a plateau kind of a thing. But there has been an impact after subsidies, right?
Yes.
How do you see Indian industry evolving? Do you feel that like startups are anyway not like covered properly in that sense, but how would your expectation be from the government from a policy perspective?
Okay, so let me take this in two parts, right? So of course government wants to wants to push the adoption of electric vehicles. And one of the modes that they have used is by giving subsidies. And then one of the reasons why they had to give it is the cost of manufacturing, if you're talking about a four-wheeler, is almost double the price of a IC four-wheeler. When you're talking about two-wheeler, it is anywhere between 1.5 to 2 times, right? And if they don't give the subsidies, the more and more people who want to develop their or design their own vehicles won't be coming into market. So subsidy has helped us in that way, to at least the OEMs who are manufacturing,
to expand the market.
To expand the market, to increase the adoption and things like that. Now, the second most important thing to that is how to remove the anxiety from the folks who are actually riding or using these vehicles. Yes, they will have a charger which they can charge at home, but think about what happens if I run out of charge, right? When you're talking about ICE vehicles, you have all these petrol pumps and things like that distributed, and they always drive with a relaxed mind, saying, okay, if I run, I have something, right? So to get or to remove that anxiety, or to get the same level of comfort for people who are using this, we need to develop a better charging infrastructure, or maybe provide stations where batteries can be replaced or swapped. And that can only happen when also government starts providing or creating policies around charging infrastructure, giving the same kind of subsidies that they're giving on the vehicles to these battery swap players or battery as a service swap players, which is not there currently. So that is one policy change. The second thing, if you look at China, right, 80% of their vehicles on the electric fleet are on low speed segment. By low speed means sub 20,
Mass
25,
market.
right? Mass market, where more and more folks can actually start using the vehicle. Unfortunately, there are no policies for low speed segment. It's only for the high speed segment and things like that, right?
So you're saying it's grown organically there.
Right. So that is on the subsidy side. Second thing is the policies that we had around low speed vehicles, which is 25 and less. It was what to say. The policy was developed almost like 50 years back. No changes have been done, right? You are constrained with how much power you can put in the motor and things like that. So that also has to be looked upon for better adoption, and for people to come up with a better and innovative solutions in that segment as well.
Okay. You do crazy number of rides in a day. The kind of network expansion that you're going through is like, it's really keeping up with the scale of the industry growth as well, and you're trying to meet the demand that there is. What is the targets, if I may ask, going forward? Like, how do you envision the company grow at what pace, say till like at the end of the decade, like if you look at a long-term perspective?
Long term will be will be a difficult thing, but by next year, at least from the last mile delivery per se, we want to cater to anywhere between 60 to 70% of the demand that is there.
Okay.
And in big cities, like at least the urban cities that we are saying, will be 60 to 70% of our total fleet size that we are looking. But that is not the only thing. We also want to improve how people move, especially when I'm talking about metros. And there, the penetration will be close to 70-80% is what we are expecting.
Okay.
Quantum wise, volume wise, very difficult to say, because the industry where we are catering to is also growing at that pace, right? Yeah. So today, if I come up with a number saying, okay, I want to deploy 100,000 by mid of next year, it could be that we may have to deploy 150, just because the number of stores that are catering to quick commerce are increasing at the same pace.
Yeah. Okay, if you could tell our viewers quick numbers on what are the numbers now in terms of, like, I mean, the penetration figures today, and you've told your the vision of how you want to grow, but what are the numbers today?
Sure.
If you could specify.
So we have close to 45,000 vehicles flying across multiple cities, major cities being Bangalore, NCR and Mumbai. When I purely talk about how many deliveries our vehicles are doing, it's not for Zeptos or Zomatos or Swiggy's of the world. On an average, we do close to 20 million per month deliveries, or we aid in delivering 20,000 orders. Swap wise, we are close to 90 or 100,000 swaps per day. These are the numbers at a very
That's
high
crazy.
level. and distance wise, kilometers wise, like it is on an average every person of ours rides close to 100 kilometers. That you can translate to number of vehicles. So
Yeah,
that
that's
is,
crazy.
and then all this is green mile
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
green
you
kilometers.
save the environment a little more
We are
as
trying,
compared
we
to,
are
yeah.
trying, we are trying.
Yeah. And what would you say is the future roadmap like? What will define the future, especially in this segment? Is it going to, it's obviously going to go more towards the technology, more software oriented vehicles, but how is it going to transform the industry and per se your company? How are you looking at that transformation?
See, the twofold. Technology is going to help to build vehicles that will have more life, better life, because end of the day, longer the life of the vehicle, it is better for any business that wants to sustain or survive in this market. Second thing is more about using technology to reduce the cost of operations, increase the uptime of the vehicle, and if these two come together using technology, this businesses will thrive and it will help in growing like anything.
Got it. For a startup, there's always this question about growth versus profitability. Some want both. Some are sort of like they're navigating there to sort of choose between the two. You're clearly in the growth phase, but how do you look at profitability? Because ultimately it's going to be about investor returns and how do you like make sustainable business, like you were just talking about it. So if you could delve a little bit about making sustainable businesses financially sustainable as well. So how will that happen and like the way forward in that
So
regard?
ours is a asset driven business, right? So it's not like 100% customer driven. Of course, we need customers to use our assets, right?
Yeah.
So the business can only grow based on the number of assets that you have, right? It cannot be like a hockey stick. Oh, I one fine day I say, okay, I'm giving you 1,000 customers. I won't be able to serve 1,000 customers
Execute.
if I don't have my assets in hand, right? So our growth will be a step growth. More vehicles we pump in, our growth will be that much. But when you're purely talking with respect to growth and profitability, see, someone has to reach that threshold before which they can even talk about profitability. So we have reached that threshold. Now for us, it is important to focus on profitability along with the growth, and that is how we are seeing our business. You should not just keep growing your business with no vision on how to reach to profitability or how to achieve the goals for
So
profitability.
any projections that you can share in terms of how fast you plan to grow in terms of profits and revenues in
See,
say next
now
5 years?
we know our Lego block of how to run our business with EBITDA positivity. The next step is how to make it PAT positive, where you're talking about like even if you lease the vehicles, you are able to at least service those vehicles or pay the debt on that one. So that is also going to be very close. And based on that, once we know that roadway, it is very easy for us to scale.
So no timelines that you would want to
No,
share at this point. Okay, fair. But going forward, what are the key trends that will shape the industry? What are the expansion plans for you on the cards? How will you sort of navigate the future growth, so to say?
So for us, like we have only touched or scratched the surface. We have touched only 3 urban cities. There are many more cities, and as I mentioned, like there are other cities also where we are seeing a big pull for our adoption for the electric vehicles, and people don't want to take ownership, right? So they want shared kind of service and things like that. So there are many cities where we are planning to go, either in the form of we operating or in the franchise model. We have started few franchise model. It is working out. So we can go to more cities based on our franchise model, what we call it as Yulu business partners.
And mostly, where is the growth going to come from? Like, would you say that you've covered the major cities, primarily top three cities, and then you sort of looking at tier 2, tier 3 towns,
No,
or
we have again, like we have not covered everything in all the major cities. We have just started our presence. So Bangalore, I would say we have covered 50%. Mumbai is a biggest market. Like there also, I would say we have covered 30 to 40%. Delhi itself being big, you're talking about Calcutta, Chennai, Hyderabad cities. Like Hyderabad, we just started. So there is a lot of scope for expansion. But again, we don't want to rush on anything because it's not only asset, but you have to also ensure that whatever vehicles that you are deploying in each of these cities are purpose built for those cities. Like every city comes with its own nuances.
How do you ensure that?
So again, like we have a strategic partnership with Bajaj, and we take any of our challenges to them. Based on the decades of experience they are able to modify few things.
Can you give me an example how the city-wise modification, because this is very interesting. It's like a hyper localization of
So
your
you
technology.
always try to go with the worst city and come down, and that gets carried forward. For example, like if you talk about cities like Mumbai and Chennai, they
Wow,
have
you're calling them worst.
worst cities in the
In
sense
terms of how bad the situation is.
no, with respect to the weather, right? So when I'm talking about Mumbai, right, it is a humid climate with a
that battery has an impact.
right? So battery has an impact. Any metal parts, it has a tendency to rust. It is more prone to rusting. So then, whatever testings are done for the parts that I meant is done for Mumbai, saying Mumbai per se or Chennai per se, and that gets trickled down, right? Second thing is you talk about our usage itself, the tires itself. We are into a type of business where we want to go with solid tires instead of pneumatic tires, and one of the reasons for that was uh, keeping the tires always full is going to be a problematic. If you are owning a personal vehicle, whenever you are running out of air, you will just go to some pump and get it. Whereas our vehicles are on the
It's a
road, right?
problem.
So solid tires. Now, how to change the technology, because conditions in Delhi are different with respect to temperature and the road temperatures versus you're talking about Bangalore where it is different, right? So we build for Delhi and that gets carried to all other cities and things like that.
Yeah, very. So again, that's hyper localization that needs to be
Hyper
involved.
localization, but whatever is the worst in any city that gets
That you get.
get to
Interesting.
all others.
Yeah. Just lastly, I wanted to understand this whole talk about localization and how India needs to go towards self-sustenance. How will that play out in the future? How ready is India when it comes to localization, like being very independent, and how basically making in India for the world? Is that story too far away?
So the key to that is, okay, when you purely talk from the EV industry per se, it was all import driven.
Correct.
I mean, most of the parts used to be imported from. Now slowly with the traction and again support from government, we are able to design things, right? Design things, but still getting manufactured from other countries. Like you simply talk about PCB, right? There are facilities in India, but it comes at a cost versus you getting it done from outside, right? So you get the PCBs done, you of course populate it here and things like that. Components, batteries, supplies. Government is giving a lot of incentives, pushing it. So slowly we'll be there. But the most important piece to this puzzle is whether we are designing it, whether we are doing the R&D, whether we are innovating or not, and that has started already, right? So the next step to that is manufacturing, which will also come very soon.
That's a good point, because people talk about localization of parts, but no one really focuses on R&D, and design also needs to be sort of
First that comes
in-house.
and then the subsequent manufacturing comes into picture.
So what is the localization percentage for you, and how do you plan to take it?
So currently, like since all our vehicles are coming from Bajaj, it is almost 100% localization, except the solid tires. But that also we are very soon working on it to make it localized. But other than that, it is pretty much the whole ecosystem is in India, and most of the design is done in-house only.
Very interesting. Very interesting times for the industry indeed. And thank you so much. We would love to be in touch with you
Absolutely.
and understand more about how the industry is going to take shape. And I think you're a very important part of the industry. And it's great to see what players like you are doing to the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice,
Very
nice
nice
talking
meeting
to you.